June 23rd, 2011, meeting of the Radnor Township Environmental Advisory Council. We appreciate your joining us here tonight. We are going to have a short EAC meeting tonight as we are going to have our Sustainability Series presentation beginning at 7 o'clock. So we are going to try to finish up this EAC meeting by 6:45 so that we can have a little bit of time to transition into that particular program. We'll give a little bit more information regarding that program after we get through a little bit of business. Let me start off then with the review and approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which would have been May 26, 2011. They have been distributed for review. Does anybody have any changes or corrections to the minutes? No. Have a motion to approve? Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Great. Aye. The minutes have been approved. Thanks to Sloan Walker for preparing them, and welcome Anne back to the EAC and the minute taking. We really appreciate your jumping right back into it. Thank you. Okay. Next up on our agenda are announcements, and the first announcement that I want to make is concerning, as I said, the Sustainability Series program that we're going to have this evening. It'll be the next installment in our Sustainability Series dealing with issues of sustainable living and growth in Radnor Township. This will be the first of two workshops that are going to be presented by the Delaware County Conservation District and the Pennsylvania resources that they have developed using funding that they've obtained through a grant provided by Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Environmental Education Grant. The topic is We All Live Downstream, and they will provide information, some demonstrations regarding water conservation and stormwater management practice issues. It'll be addressed to households, businesses, and municipalities, and addressing such as native landscaping, rain gardens, rain barrels, sump pumps, stormwater basins, etc. So for anyone who may be watching on television, we would love it if you could come down beginning at 7 o'clock for that program. It'll run from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Would love to have your attendance here. Thank you. The other announcement that I have is regarding an upcoming program, actually an upcoming celebration by the Delaware Valley Green Building Council. They're going to be holding their annual Green Building Celebration and Leadership Award ceremony on Thursday, September 22nd. That'll be down at the Waterworks Restaurant and Lounge in Philadelphia, where they'll be distributing their annual awards for leadership, and be lots of folks there that are in the business of developing green buildings, retrofitting green buildings. It'd be a great opportunity if you have any interest in that to join me down there. I'm going to be down at that program as well. So, does anyone have other announcements? No? Okay. Very good. All right, next item on our agenda is a special presentation that Robin Mann has arranged for us on electric choice, and I'm going to let Robin make the introductions, tell us a little bit about that.
Great, thank you, Brenda. My intro is on my phone, which I'm not going to use, so I'm going to turn this over to Yossi right away. Yossi Fritzmauer with the Energy Co-op of Philadelphia, which is an energy supplier of sustainable energy, heating oil, electricity, and biodiesel. And Yossi oversees both the biodiesel and the electricity program. So Yossi, maybe when you stand up, you can give us a little bit of your background. He's going to speak about electricity choice and some of the considerations both for municipalities and for residential customers in making choices about electricity. Yossi, and he's going to speak for about 10 minutes and then 5 minutes for questions. That's about the time that we have. Yossi.
Okay, thank you. I see this is on. I'm really pleased to be here tonight. Thanks for inviting me. Among other things, we have been the biodiesel distributor to the Radnor Township School District since 2008. So it's nice to be in front of back in our members' township and speaking about renewable energy and energy generally in another way. As Robin mentioned, The Energy Cooperative is in Philadelphia. We serve in the greater five-county area. We're a nonprofit cooperative providing energy cost savings and access to renewable energy on behalf of our members. And so I'm going to be speaking tonight about electric choice for both municipal entities and also for residents. And also I'm going to include a component about purchasing renewable electricity, since I think that's something important given the greenhouse gas emission analysis that I know you all have been working on. So to begin with, just a little brief history of electricity. Utilities have been public-private entities that have been set up all over the country, and in Pennsylvania, the purpose of these was to eliminate the duplication of wires that happened in the ground. And so it made sense to have what's called a grid that everyone was on together and have one company provide not just the generation power for that, but also the distribution to all the entities. What a number of states have done, and Pennsylvania included, was to sort of separate the distribution component of the energy from the generation and transmission of it. And so in 1996, Pennsylvania actually deregulated their electric markets, and so PECO moved just to the distribution side of things. With rate caps in place that were put in place at that time, a lot of the sort of first round of deregulation, the suppliers that came into the market went out of business because they couldn't compete on price with PECO's rate caps that were below the market rates. Those expired at the end of 2010, and so what we've seen is a number of competitive suppliers that have come in, which have given both people, residents, businesses, and municipalities the choice not only from where to buy their power, but to who to buy it from, and particularly where it's generated from, and I think that's a real key consideration. So the current market, there's about 36 suppliers for electricity in the PECO network. You can find a full list of them, and the PUC maintains a great website called papowerswitch.com. The PA is short for Pennsylvania, and that's all one word. There you can search by your utility, by what type of resident, or what type of customer you are, whether you're at the residential or commercial level. And municipalities can also find a full list of entities there that are licensed as electric generation suppliers that can provide service. That has a listing of everyone's rate, as well as PECO's rate to compare. PECO's rates now change on a quarterly basis, and they remain the default supplier for anyone who doesn't wish to switch, but there is money to be made and also a carbon footprint lowering to be had for people who are able to look into the switching. There are some considerations to make when deciding whether or not to switch. One is that certain types of residents probably shouldn't switch from a cost basis. People who are on a customer assistance plan or a CAP program are getting a subsidized rate through PECO, and typically they can't switch even if they initiate the switch process. Also, if you are a residential heating customer or if you have an off-peak rate, both again at the residential level, you're probably getting a better rate through PECO than you would through any other supplier, and so those are things to keep in mind. But for most others, there's a choice out there, and quite a number of choices actually, which has gotten increasing coverage in the Philadelphia Inquirer and other places. Some considerations to make when choosing when to switch. One is effectively not much will change. You will still get a PECO bill that will have a line item on it that concerns the supplier that you've chosen to switch to. And so PECO bills right now have 5 different charges on them, ranging from a distribution charge and a transition charge and a customer charge, which are still regulated and will still come through PECO. But they also have what's called generation and transmission, and that's where the shopping can really occur. And so that's where the rate to compare comes into play, which is displayed on your PECO bill in regards to what other suppliers can offer you. A thing that hasn't gotten enough press, I believe, is that the ability to switch doesn't just mean you can choose who to get your power from, but where it's coming from. And so the source of your power is a key consideration to make, particularly if you're interested in getting renewable energy. But even within that, there's various gradations that come into play. So one of those is that renewable energy can come from all sorts of different places from a geographic standpoint. And so it's possible to say that you would get power that comes from within Pennsylvania, for instance, or that it could come from anywhere else in the country, even if it's not attached to our grid. And so typically, that's one question that municipalities and others should be asking is where is this power actually generated? Because it's for instance, it's the case right now that the cheapest wind energy available is actually credits that are coming from Texas. But that obviously wouldn't have the sort of community job and environmental benefits from a clean air standpoint that it would if you purchased from within Pennsylvania. Another consideration is obviously the technology. What types of renewable energy are you purchasing? So in Pennsylvania, alternative energy, as defined by the state mandate that requires all power sold to come from increasing levels of renewable energy, is defined from anything from solar, wind, low-impact hydro, the sort of stereotypical idealized forms of renewable energy that people think of, all the way to coal mine methane and coal gasification, and pretty much everything in between there, from landfill gas and on down. So that's another consideration, is asking, where is this power being generated and what types of sources is it being generated from? The third and probably obvious point is what's the price? If you want, you could pay, at this point, less, more, or about the same as you would if you stayed with PECO using their power mix as you would for renewable energy. Related to the price component is what percentage of the electricity comes from renewable sources. And so out there, you can get anything from 100% renewable power, which is something that the Energy Cooperative and others have offered for years, all the way down to typically something in the 20 to 50% range. And that will have a cost consideration as well. And then the fourth point is sort of this price reliability standpoint. You can sign up for different types of rates, and this is true whether you're a municipality going out with some sort of RFP process or a resident. You can get a fixed rate that has a contract for a set time period. It's worth keeping in mind that although you know what your rate's going to be and it's going to be fixed for a time period, those often come with cancellation fees in the event that you opt out early. And you can also get a variable monthly rate that will change depending on the market and is not always predictable up front, but could yield more savings over the long term depending on who you sign up with. This is something that I think municipalities in particular can sort of direct what kind of process they want, but even at the residential level, there are suppliers that are offering anything from fixed rates that are 6 to 12 or longer months, all the way down to just a variable rate that's going to change, that may change unpredictably. So that's sort of the broad overview of electric choice and renewable electric choice in particular. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that people might have.
Questions?
Yeah, I think that's really very helpful and very interesting. Wondered if you could give a little sense of what the default mix is in terms of renewable energy, and then I have a follow-up.
Sure. The most recent statistics for the PECO network are from 2009, and so this is what their typical mix was at that time. I believe that 95% of it came from either coal, fossil fuel, or nuclear sources. The majority of that was from coal, and nuclear was a strong second. That's one way of answering your question. The other is that in 2004, there was signed into law what's called the Pennsylvania Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard, which is the equivalent of a renewable portfolio standard that's been passed in other states. That requires over a 15-year period culminating in 2021 for an increasing amount of renewable energy to be used from various different sources. And so that the amount of renewable content is going to go up over time to the point where at the end, all utilities and other generation suppliers will have to sell electricity that comes from 18% alternative energy, with half of 1% coming from solar energy, and there's some other carve-outs as well.
Right. And I've heard people say that when you buy wind energy, for example, you might not really be adding to the demand for wind. It's sort of like a big pool. It's out there already. Could you give a little feel for what really is happening when somebody checks the box and says, I want, wind power?
Sure. This is always a tough question to answer, but someone always answers it, and so I've gotten pretty good at the response, I think. Think of the grid as a giant swimming pool filled with power, and everyone's going up to it with a straw, and they're sucking out their energy. When you as a consumer say, I want to buy 100% renewable energy that comes from wind, it doesn't mean that the little droplets of water you come out are necessarily going to have been generated from wind. It's just simply not possible to check off a box and have the wind energy find its way from the corridor of I-76 all the way into your house. So that's sort of the not always obvious point that people don't understand when we're talking about grids. Typically what's happening is you're buying, when you say you want wind, or whatever the case may be, the generation supplier is going out there and buying what's called renewable energy credits, or RECs, and they're basically buying in proportion to how much wind or how much energy you use, enough renewable energy credits to offset that. And so that's the big picture of how this is working. And so it's not necessarily that you're furthering I need to be careful here. When you purchase wind, it doesn't mean that you're supporting more development of wind. It means that you are supporting the development of wind that's already in place. And so you're basically buying right to the wind that has been produced and saying that energy is what I want to take title to and what I want to say I've used. The sort of big picture theory is that if enough people make that choice, then the market will say, oh, look at all these people who have made this commitment to renewable energy on a voluntary or mandatory basis, as happens with the state mandates for renewable energy. And then the market will say, we need to build more because there's clearly a demand for it out there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's very helpful, and especially that last linkage where it's a signal, maybe not a direct signal yet, but a signal about support and interest in different types of energy. And I don't know whether it links to payments back to wind energy developers at this point, but
it typically links back to payments to the facilities that are producing the wind.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're the ones who produce it, and they get a credit that they can then sell on the market.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So I don't know if that throws off my next question, because I was going to ask her, we're looking at the source geographically. Is it a local source? Is it a national source? Is it wind, solar, hydro, whatever? I was going to ask if, is there benefit to, seemingly there's benefit to sourcing your energy from a local company producing energy through an alternative method or a green method. So I was going to ask you if you knew off the top of your head, are there available providers to Radnor that are within the region, whether it's New Jersey, PA, whatever, that we could subscribe to?
Sure. So there's a few dozen suppliers that are serving the PICO market. Most of those are large national companies. In many cases, they've set up headquarters somewhere in the greater Philadelphia region. And so depending on how you define local, they may fit that bill. We are the only nonprofit and the only, I think, option that has our headquarters here. We're a small nonprofit.
I guess I'm thinking of the actual generation.
The generation
Like I'm thinking
of the
New
power.
Jersey, they're being big in solar. They're doing huge wind implementations for offshore wind. I wonder if there's, I think that's what I would like to see is, buying from that wind farm up in X County or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can, as a municipality, you're certainly in the position to put out an RFP and specify where you get it from, and I'm guessing people could respond to that bid, if that's something that you decide is important from a greenhouse gas emission standpoint.
Well, as a follow-up, I understand that there is a solar farm being set up in Lancaster County. Is that do you know other examples or, actual alternative power generation activities going on around here?
There's, depending on the technology type, you can find sort of a broad listing of those. And depending on how specific you want to be, you know, you can probably have what you want as long as you're willing to pay for it. Yeah, it's out there. I can tell you from a supplier standpoint, the more demands you put on it, the harder it is to guarantee that you can offer that on a long-term basis. Typically, I think that it's quite easy to say, if you limit it to, say, within the Mid-Atlantic region or within Pennsylvania, that's probably a promise you can make that you can keep over time. But looking forward, you know, multiple years into the future, it's not always easy to say, well, you know, Radnor Township, 301 Ivan Avenue, give or take a few blocks. Something like that is going to be a lot harder to do on an ongoing basis.
And right now, the regulatory framework in Pennsylvania is a little bit different than New Jersey in that those RECs that will satisfy the alternative energy portfolio standards can be used if there's any renewable generation anywhere within the PJM system, which goes across many states, unlike in New Jersey, where if you want to satisfy those, it has to be a New Jersey REC. So they're really supporting, you know, renewable development more so in New Jersey than in Pennsylvania, which is, I think, why their market is a little more robust than it is here.
That's right, yeah. Pennsylvania is actually the only state with an alternative energy portfolio standard that allows for energy to satisfy that comes from outside of Pennsylvania or outside of the state in which it's generated.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a website?
Yes, our website is www.theenergy, THEENERGY.coop, COOP.
Well, thank you very much, and maybe if we have additional questions, I'll just send out your email address and folks can get in touch with you.
Sure, yeah. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I think it's great, the commitments that Radnor has made through sort of thick and thin economic times towards moving towards greenhouse gas emission lowering.
Thank you very much for coming. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Great
Very
presentation. Okay, we're going to move into our work group reports and discussion. I'm going to start off with climate protection, greenhouse gas action plan, and Josh typically leads that up, but in his absence, I'm going to take that on. And I had sent out some emails to the EAC. As you know, Josh is working on trying to pull together the draft greenhouse gas action plan, and in doing so, he's reviewed with us ideas. He's had a list of 22 ideas, talked to us about it, talked to lots of other folks, and we all think those ideas are generally pretty good. But the next step is we have to actually write up descriptions so that we can share them with other stakeholders here in the township staff. And so I really want to make a big push to try to get this finished up, and I think it's a lot to just put that all on Josh to write all of that. So what I've done is asked everyone if they would volunteer to pick one or two of these and draft something up. You don't have to have independent knowledge about these particular things. There's information available, and as I mentioned, there's other municipalities who have done greenhouse gas action plans. Many of our ideas are very similar to theirs, so there's resources available to look at. So I'm hoping to get volunteers to write some of these. And I know Sloan has volunteered to do some. Robin, I got an email from today. Steve, Josh, myself. If anyone else would like to volunteer to write some up, I would really appreciate it.
I'll get back to you.
Okay, very good. Great, thank you.
I'm happy to do it. Just tell me which one.
Okay, all right, I will do that. Excellent, we appreciate the help. It'll get it done a whole
Yeah.
lot faster.
Divide and conquer.
Right, and actually, in that regard, also, I was communicating with Melissa Kahn earlier today at the Township, and they have put in for a grant for some energy efficiency upgrades, and we certainly are going to want to include those in this report as well. Hopefully they'll get that grant. We'll hear about that in a month or so, but we'll want to include that in here as one of the actions that the Township is going to take.
Any-
Can I just ask?
Yes.
Those upgrades, are they for this building? or
No, they're actually for light fixtures, for traffic lights, for some LED conversions, I think on the turn signals. Let me see if I have it here. For replacement of yellow halogen traffic bulbs and yellow-green arrows with LED bulbs.
Thanks.
So, to make sure we include that as well. Okay, terrific, thank you. All right, next up is Sustainability Work Group, and under that topic, of course, we have our Sustainability Series workshop tonight, as I mentioned. We all live downstream starting at 7 o'clock, and then just a reminder as well that the second workshop in this series is going to be on July 28th, and that'll be entitled Bringing Green Energy Home. That will also be hosted by Delaware County Conservation District and the Pennsylvania Resources Council, teaching about energy efficiency, conservation, renewable energy technologies for households, businesses, and municipalities. It'll be 7 o'clock, July 28th, here in the Township building. So if folks can get that on the calendar, it would be great. And you can register to attend if you go to the link on the Township page for Sustainability Series. All of the information is there, and you can register to attend. Okay, next up under sustainability is an update on the electric vehicle charging station pilot project. On Monday night, the Board of Commissioners heard a presentation from Community Energy about this pilot project that, as you all know, we had heard a presentation. We voted in favor of recommending that the Board of Commissioners pursue the installation of an electric vehicle charging station, working with Community Energy on their pilot project, putting that up in Wayne. Board of Commissioners voted on Monday night 6-0 to authorize their solicitor to go ahead and negotiate an agreement with Community Energy and participate in that. It was very exciting. Sloan and I were both at that meeting, spoke in favor of it. There was no objection from the audience. All of the commissioners voted for it, so it was terrific. It was really very exciting to see that move forward. So we're looking forward to hopefully seeing that come to fruition very, very soon. And I believe media, Community Energy had also engaged media in this pilot program. So we're going to be really one of the very few folks out there with a charging station in public place. So good news to report.
Really exciting night it was, and
Yes, it was.
it's going to continue to be an interesting project. So
Right. So we'll make sure everybody is updated as we
Yeah.
go forward.
definitely.
Okay. And Sloan, do you have a Water Sense Partnership tip of the month?
I do. Well, I am going to change it up a little bit from a tip to some interesting information that WaterSense EPA has put out, asking the question, what are the environmental benefits of water efficiency? So not so much a tip, but it's sort of a little bit of context about why it's important to conserve water. Water efficiency, together with reducing pollutants such as pesticides, can be an effective way to reduce pollution. Some of the environmental benefits that are aided by water efficiency include reduced water contamination caused by polluted runoff from over-irrigating yards and agricultural lands, as well as reduced need to construct additional dams and reservoirs or otherwise regulate the natural flow of streams, thus preserving their free flow and retaining the value of stream and river systems as wildlife habitats and recreational areas. Reduced need to construct additional water and wastewater treatment facilities, and reduced surface water withdrawals that degrade habitat both in streams and on land close to streams and lakes. So just a little bit of context to help motivate folks in conserving water. Sometimes when it's rained for a little while, we forget the other benefits to saving water. So
Great.
the latest from the EPA.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Very good. Okay, next work group report, community environmental awareness. again, Josh usually has something there. He's not here. Does anyone else have anything for that category?
Would recycling it be in that category?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds like a good one
Yeah.
for recycling.
So
yeah.
so I mention it because I had a nice chat with Peggy Hagan about recycling in Radnor. She had some interesting ideas, including on the community outreach front. She thought maybe we could work together with some of the schools to design a poster that she thought she might be able to use to encourage recycling in Radnor. Something that might go on the mailings that go out about recycling and the newsletter. So I thought that was a very interesting idea. Maybe we could do a contest for the best poster or something like that. Mm-hmm. We all know the kids are often our best allies in terms of motivating on the home front. So it might be a good way to capitalize on that. So I'm happy to reach out if anybody has a good place to start. I know Josh had some good contacts at I think it was Wayne Elementary, so I was going to talk to him about that. But
and Esther Choi at Ithan Elementary is heading up the environmental committee over there.
Great, I'll reach out.
My wife's a teacher at the middle school.
Oh, great.
I can ask her, but also the watershed program at the middle school.
Yeah, that's a great program.
7th grade, I believe. John Savage, great program that my son went through.
Oh, good.
So,
Danny?
yeah, right.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I neglected to introduce Brucey Rappaport, who is here as a liaison on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Board. We appreciate your sitting in, and I should have done that at the very beginning. It's great to have you. We often have Skip Kunda from the Planning Commission, Genevieve Burns from the Board of Health, and it's just fabulous to have someone from Parks and Rec with us tonight. So.
And Brucey, you may know good school.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
To contact on
That's
that.
right. I can mention it at the next school board meeting. I'll be
Oh,
glad
you
to do
would?
that. Sure.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be terrific.
And I think the suggestions that have been given tonight are good too.
Great.
Excellent.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. That's terrific.
Okay, beautiful. All right, anything else under community environmental awareness?
I also reached out to, I guess it's same general topic, but to Home Depot.
Oh, you did? Okay.
To ask whether they might be interested in working with us on an incentive or something with respect to water efficient products, maybe other green products, and had a nice chat with a store manager there who is considering it and will get back to us. So hopefully we'll have some further info on that at future.
That sounds great.
Meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Sloan.
Sure.
Have we ever worked with Do It Best right there on
I love
Pennsylvania?
Do It Best. I haven't asked them, but
I think they're great to work with.
are they?
We're there all the time, so I don't know.
I mean, I know there's a great place, so it's a good idea. We should
Okay.
reach out to them too. We're not trying to favor just one.
I'll
Do you know? Is it Carl who runs it? Or?
yeah, and I just have a good rapport with a couple guys in there, so
Oh, great.
I'll talk to them.
Great, thank you.
Okay, very good. Got anything else, Sloan? You're coming up with a lot tonight. This is great.
That's it.
That's it,
That's all I
okay.
got.
You're dry. Okay, next up are our liaison reports, but Planning Commission, Board of Health are not here. But Brucey, this is a time where we just reserve some time for our liaisons to report out on what they're doing in their respective boards and commissions. If it's anything that, there might be some synergies with what we're doing or might be good to alert us to things. No pressure, but...
I don't know if it's synergy with what you are doing here, but and I'm sure it isn't, the concert series have started already every Wednesday night. And I guess the lights at the tennis courts are going to be on from 8:30 to 10:30, 2 nights a week. They were going to be shut off, so now this is an advancement, yeah.
What nights?
I wish I could remember that. Maybe, I don't know. If you go on the website, you'll find it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, is there any other old business that we haven't brought up yet? No? New business. And did you want to, briefly introduce the
Yes,
Burton?
I shared with, I think, everybody on the EAC. Bruce, I don't think you're on the distribution list, although maybe you are.
We can get you on the list.
A proposal that we received asking us to support an effort to get Radnor involved with the Audubon's Bird Town program. The Conservancy is interested in having the township participate. So I circulated this. It does involve quite a bit of township activity. And the Conservancy is not expecting anyone on the EAC or the EAC to lead on that or provide a lot of resources, but they would like our support. Right now, they're looking for somebody who would be the point person for the project, somebody that they would then designate Big Bird, apparently. So I circulated that. We can talk about it. And John Fisher, who was the Conservancy representative who initially contacted me, wasn't able to be here tonight and cannot be at the July meeting. He's reached out to someone at Audubon to see if he could come, obviously not tonight, but perhaps for the July meeting. And if not, we can put off further consideration of this until August or September, when one of them can be here to talk to us a little bit more about it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, any other new business? No? Okay, very good. Is there any public comment? No? Okay, very good. You're the only one sitting there. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something you had in mind. Terrific. Then what we'll do is we'll adjourn our EAC meeting, give us some time to get set up for the Sustainability Series program on water issues. We all live downstream, which will start here at the Township building at 7 o'clock and run until 8:30. Thank you.
Great.